Welcome to Secrets from the Scene, a show for local musicians who want to improve their music, grow their audience, and learn about Minnesota's music scene. If you're interested in talking about all things music related and meeting interesting people from our local community, you're in the right place. Welcome to Secrets from the Scene. My name is Stephen Helvig, and I'm your host. If this is your first time joining us, thanks for checking this out. We really appreciate you being here. And if you're a longtime listener, can't say thank you enough. Today's episode is going to be really great. It's going to be all about how supporting others can actually really help your own career out, maybe more than you think. And today's guest is such a good example of that. You've probably seen his name on a gig poster, hands on the keyboard, or his music on your socials. Zaq Baker has been all over the Twin Cities music scene, quietly and loudly building his career through so many different avenues. Plays with tons of bands, has a solo project, also wrote a book. That's pretty unique. A collaborator, a friend, and what I noticed about Zaq first and foremost was a true supporter of other people in the scene. And I've watched that only enable and make opportunities for him throughout that, which of course was not why he was doing it. It's not who he is. But I want to spend today talking about how helping other people is maybe the best way to help yourself. Please welcome Zaq Baker.
Thank you, Stephen, for having me, first of all. Also, that is such a good intro. I need to steal what you just said and make it my bio. That was fire. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a number of years now, and watching your, career and opportunities. And I mean, you just got off of an East Coast tour. You just played the Art of World stage. You're doing a book tour. It just keeps getting bigger and better. And I think this is my theory, people. This is not at all. I'm putting this on Zaq, and so he's gonna be like, wait a minute, but. Now, I think that a lot of that has been because of how supportive you were in the early years of everyone around you. Why was that important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't refute that. I think it's super true. I mean, I'm a very genuine believer in like a karmic energy that if bad things happen to someone else and you're there to support them and you're there to help them through it, that will come back around. Not because you want it to come back around to you, but just because that's an actual energy you're putting into the universe. I think in the arts, that may be even more true within that specific part of the world, because everybody's trying to make their own thing happen. If you're an artist, what you need to do is be expressing yourself, and you have reasons to be doing that, to bring a lot of personality into your creative work. And so if you're a person who's supporting other people who do that, you're getting to uplift this very true version of your friend or of your collaborator. Or if you're simply doing freelancing, you meet this client or artist or singer who has something on their heart. And that's a really good reason to help them in itself. You know?
I think a lot of people are fully on board with if you're a collaborator in this project or this is your friend, that's easy. It's no brainer. You're helping them, right? But I've seen you post things that I think you're just a fan of. That you don't necessarily have a direct connection to.
Yep.
That you're just this is cool, and I want to share it for the sake of sharing it. I don't even know who this person is yet. But then you might get to know them through that because you're supporting them. And I talk a little bit about that. What goes through your mind when it's somebody that's not connected to you?
Yeah, okay, that's an awesome question. A lot of where that comes from is honestly being such a huge fan of music and also of literature and of musical theater. If you like your craft, I think it's kind of incumbent on a creative person to go deep on it. And there's part of me that if there's people that don't just dive deep on listening to what their job is, I'm how can you not be so excited to try and learn all the music that's out there? And especially the impact of music on culture, that's why I'm just streaming records all the time. If I'm at home, I got my headphones on. If I'm sending emails, I'm trying to listen to new music all the time. So when you see me post stuff of people I don't know, I'm someone that very genuinely, there's a friend of a friend of a friend on socials who they're just hey, this is my buddy. They're in this emo band. and it's on Bandcamp now, I'm actually just like, all right, cool. Like, because what I want to do is consume new music all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I repost that stuff, it's usually just because like I genuinely am like, this is good. And my friends are maybe sleeping on it because they don't know this person. And maybe they'll actually click on it. But it's mostly just for being a fan. I'm like a very enthusiastic person.
Yeah.
I'm like, check this out. I like it, you know?
Which is the best way to do it, of course. I think that some of the hesitancy of why we don't see more of this is because people overthink that a little bit and start wondering, well, are they going to think that I'm posting it because I want something from them? Maybe I want to collaborate with them, or I want to show with them.
Yeah.
Or I want the connection. I want to be, maybe they're a bigger artist than you are and you're trying to get attention.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of people that get into that, like, I don't want to like seem like I'm
opportunistic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess, and this is a very true response. I feel like sincerity comes through pretty clearly, whether it's on socials or if you're like meeting other bands in real life. So when I'm just like amped about somebody's like new EP that just came out, I guess I've never thought about if someone would see that and think there was like an effort to glom onto something that was bigger than you or that had like some kind of advantage in it. 'Cause I'm just more like, hey, I like this. And
yeah,
probably you don't see a lot of people hyping up, that random album or something. So I'm just like, hey, bump, if you like my taste, you might actually like this rock record or this like random pop thing that just came out.
Right. Well, and to be fair, too, it's good content for you because if people are following you because they like your music and then you're also giving them like other really good stuff to go check out, then, it's useful. They're like, oh, thanks. That's another great artist that I get to listen to.
Yeah. I also feel too, and it's funny, we're going down like the topic of socials, which is fine because I spend a lot of time there.
Yes,
I know you do too.
Sure.
But, some of it is that uplifting other creative people is honestly so easy. Like if I think of like 4 opinions I have about somebody's new release and I just kind of chuck it on my story, that takes a few minutes max just to be like, here's some specific stuff I honestly like about it, whatever the genre is. It's also like not hard. Or if you go to your friend's show, right, like almost everyone gets a clip, usually right when the show starts because they're amped. So then all the clips are of the beginning of their first song. And then you just tag them. And that's usually it. People don't even put their like personal review. They're just like, yo, that's my friend. And it's like, that's great. After I play a show, it's like, it's kind of the next day you get to ride the high a little bit and be like, okay, cool. People were genuinely excited to share it,
Mm-hmm.
But my point is it's so easy to just uplift people. Is very easy.
Absolutely. I think it comes down to trying to be intentional about why, though, that makes it more effective versus just like a tag and a share or whatever, which is still great.
Yeah.
But the fact that you take some thought and let's say something specific about this helps it to be more personalized.
Yeah. I've thought about how my brain works. I feel like this might annoy people. I've suspected that, but I feel like it's very hard for me to share much of anything and not leave like a touch of a like review of what I think about it.
Okay.
So I think that's common when I share records or share like bands that I've worked on the record and I share it. It's like, I sort of can't help it. Like I have a compulsion to be like, well, here's what I think about it. Why else would I share it? Like that's kind of what I do. And it's like when I look over my own journal entries, it's like paragraph after paragraph of stuff that I see, but it always has like well, here's my take on it. That's how my brain works. Yeah. I imagine it's like if you see your friend's show and you have 0 opinions on it, like what? I just tend to like exude them to other people.
Yeah. I think that it can be a great way to expand your network, to also just make somebody happy.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you'd be surprised at how even maybe artists that you think must be getting accolades, if you look at them and go, oh, they've got really big opportunities, it still matters to them to hear from other musicians and, like to get a really positive comment of like, that was a really great single that you just dropped or whatever. It matters. And it also just creates a better community and a better atmosphere, a better feeling throughout, the different collaborations among shows and things like that.
Yeah.
Going into it.
That's the karma thing I'm talking about. I think too, what I'm realizing during this conversation, like part of why sharing other people's work and uplifting it has inherent merit is because the music industry is so bound up with optics, which like it's always been that way, right? Well, since before the time that I was growing up in the music community. And so there's a lot of like, hey, you're really blowing up, or like I see your name here and there, or like this band is cool. But that's a good thing. I have no problem with that. But I also think it's nice to be like, hey, the specific like style that you adopted with your album that was exciting, and like your vocals, where you're talking about like the creative work, people don't always get like direct feedback on that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of fun for people to be like, oh, that was a cool like voicing. And it's like, yeah, I guess so. Like I wrote it a while ago, and I don't sit around thinking about how it's like a major 7 with a 9 on top or whatever. So if another like artist says that, it's like, oh yeah, there's stuff in the actual body of work that's like worth having a conversation about.
Yeah.
People don't always do that.
All right, I want to get into some of the little nuances here on
I love nuance.
too.
Let's go granular. Let's do it.
Okay, I think about my own situation, which is running a recording studio, producing records. I find it hard to share stuff that I didn't work on, that I'm not a part of, because it's like, well, pretty much everything we're posting and sharing is client work.
Oh yeah.
So
when you have a lot of it, right? So there's bulk.
And so if we're posting something that's not client work, are we giving the impression that it was, and it's not? You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I generally don't do that on a business page. I could do it on a personal page. I don't use personal Instagram, so I don't have that. But so that would be one way around it. But similarly, I think with artists, there can be a little bit of like, depending on what I'm sharing, does that say something about my music? For instance, if my friend that I really like as a person releases something and I really don't like their music, what do I do?
Yeah. They'll be like, oh, I noticed you didn't share my thing. Like,
Right.
which they're not going to tell you. Yeah. That's a really good point. And I think it's obviously a divergence between like the contributions that you and I make to the music community. Cause I when I hype up an album, I doubt anyone would get the impression that like I played keys on it. Also, if I did, I would be like, I had so much fun playing keys on this record.
Right.
But yeah. Oh yeah. I think part of my angle too is like, you know, I think of myself as a writer, and I don't know how much we'll even get into that during this podcast, but like as a creative person, I've always done music as a writer. Like that's how I view songwriting. Like the craft is literally like, how do you get lyrics to fit with music? Obviously I wrote a book, and that not only involved writing a book, but like doing literary deep dive stuff for like 3 years. But where I'm going with that, I think, is like when you hype up other people's work and I share my opinion on it, there's like this sort of nugget of like a journalistic idea where I'm like, if you care how I feel about things, whether I'm a musician or a writer or not, this is what like a journalist might weigh in on if they're reviewing something. Now, I'm not actually doing a review because that would be ludicrous to like review your peers, and that would be weird.
Yeah.
But to me, that's where like the tone comes from, where it's like, oh, this person like opines about music privately and they shared a couple sentences about some specific thing. Like that's just fun. I would read it if my friend did that, you know?
Yeah. This can be from your perspective, or if you have an understanding of other people and how they, you know, decide to share and not share. But how do you decide if something shouldn't be shared?
Oh, I'm trying to think of the last time a friend like dropped something that I was like, I'm sure there's examples.
I'm sure there are.
I don't know.
I think that's part of the problem with this, because the reason why I'm bringing this up is that alone, or the sense of like, well, there can be a gray area with some of this, that it's just might be easier to have the policy of I'm just not going to do it.
Like ever?
Ever. Yeah. I'll keep it on task. Like this is about our shows. This is about the things that we do.
Yeah.
And we don't bother with any of the other stuff or here's another great example of like, well, if I hype up this one and then another person that I know releases something and I don't hype that up, are they going to feel bad about it? You know,
Right.
I think it can be a simpler approach to just do nothing.
Yeah. That would be simpler.
Has that ever crossed your mind, or you're like, wait?
It hasn't. And what's funny is I'm probably the most chronic overthinker that I know in every department. But I think the subcategory of what you're expressing is actually not something I've ever overthought once, of like, what does this say about me? Or does this impact how much people perceive like shows of my own? I guess I've never thought of those as something that would be like zero sum with each other, I guess. I also find that if someone's page was only posting about shows that they have coming up, not even for being in any kind of self-interested way, it's just like that's like less enjoyable to look at. Like if someone only was like, here's when my upcoming things are, I'd be like, that's not fun. Like my attention span is a little too short for like band that only does band things.
Yeah, you're not getting a very holistic picture.
But an interesting thing for you as like a A-list producer is everything that you post showcases a wide variety. So that's different. If you were like playing a local show every month and it was like, here's another thing, you know, that would have a bit of a like monotone. Whereas for you, it's like, oh, sick. There's like this rapper, there's this new indie artist, there's a songwriter. Like your portfolio is by very nature, like has a lot of diversity in it.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I guess one way of getting around that for people is, I think, adding a little bit more context of like, this is why I'm posting this, because I worked on it, and listing credits. Because I generally don't do that. If I'm posting it, it's because I worked on it.
It's a hell big project.
Yeah, because that's how we do it. But it'd be easy enough to you know, put a disclaimer in there if it wasn't.
I should get like a caution tape. I did not work on this.
Right.
I've just never thought about that. And again, I think it's because I'm so effusive. Like I'll be like, I had so much fun playing keys and doing harmonies, and I helped like, you know, engineer. Yeah, I doubt anyone would look at mine and think it was because I worked on it. But maybe they do. People skim. I go fast when I'm looking at socials. Like,
yeah. Or that you're associated with it, whether you worked on it or not. You know, it might be in your network of like, these are the groups that I'm playing with, or some other association potentially. But
now I'm gonna go home and be like,
thank you for now giving me a whole
Steven told me not to share anyone else's music ever because of perceived snubs. No, I'm just kidding. I won't.
And I'm actually kind of curious now that you haven't thought of it. Do you think that because the reason I'm bringing that up, obviously from our business perspective that I shared, but I also think that there's not a lot of people that are sharing as much as you and supporting other people as much as you. There are. I'm not saying you're the top person doing that, but I would say in general, a lot of artists are just posting their stuff. And if they are posting other artists, it's because they're playing with that artist. There's another thing coming up.
Yeah.
And outside of that, you know, very little beyond that.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and it might be a friend, but it's probably a friend they're playing shows with.
I guess so.
And so that's where I find that you're a bit unique. And what I want to point out is maybe some of the whys why that doesn't happen. And that would be one of my assumptions, is this overthinking of how that works. But maybe I'm incorrect about that. You know?
Well, it's just fun to find a rare turf in the world that I don't overthink. What a joy, because there's not a lot of them, you know. I think some of it too, and people that are watching this that know me personally would have a great handle on this. Like, so much of my personality is just like uplifting people in real life, whether I just like meet someone in a social hangout or like I'm kind of doing like what we call friend therapy, you know, generationally. So I think a lot of sharing people's records is essentially just like a translation of that, right? Like so many of the bands I'm in, people will be like, oh my God, you have such good energy with like this other person in the band, or you seem like you're having so much fun on stage. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a very, very, very large chunk of why I do all the crazy stuff I do. Right. So I just feel like sharing other people's music is just like part and parcel of that, I suppose. But I think uplifting people, a lot of people just have good instincts about that in general. So you'd be like, oh, you should check this record out. Whether it's like a super famous artist or just like, I think you might like this, no matter how niche it is. In fact, the more niche it is, the better. Right?
Sure.
I think you'd like this because I know your taste. That's like a love language to me.
Yeah.
Like, I know what you like. I think you might like this record.
Yeah. And we've spent a lot of this conversation talking about sort of the social media aspect of supporting other people, where it's sharing and posting and things like that. But there's also showing up to shows.
Yeah.
And offering to collaborate or to sit in or to help. And that's another big way that you've helped, is offering keyboards on tons of projects.
Usually I don't offer. Last handful of years, it's more like, hey, I know you're busy, but would you want to?
Sure.
You know, that's not to say I don't.
But that's not where it started.
Have myself out there.
That's not where it started.
That's not where it started. Correct. Yep.
And that's the point that we're making for people, is like, you know, you put yourself out there and started these things before there was demand, before that you were super busy and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit now about the ripple effects of that.
I will. I wanted to say too, I think a large reason that I play in so many bands is because music reflects so much, like genre alone reflects so much personality. So like my music, obviously incorporates many of the different things I'm into. I shouldn't even say all of them because that would be bananas, but it's like, it started as like, this is a pop punk band with a piano. That's like enough to be like, yeah, that's what Zaq likes. It sounds a little bit like Reliant K. It sounds a lot like Ben Folds. It sounds a lot like other like pop punk stuff. But all the other bands I'm in reflect like different sensibilities.
Yeah.
So Maria and the Coins and Poison Ivy and the People are bands that sound extremely different from one another. But if I pitch either band to someone, I'm like, well, it's like a really, really great vocalist. And I just call it like theater rock. Because I'm like, if you like this stuff, that's what it combines. And that's what my personality is. Toilet Rats is synth punk. That's like who I am. You know what I mean? In a completely different way. I'm not even playing piano. It's all mono synth. I love doing vocal harmonies. And that style of music is like who I am as a person, right? It's like when people are little kids and they make a movie like part of their personality. Mm-hmm. That's what like the synth punk thing is. So like part of me putting myself out there is like you go to a show and it's like, well, I love what you're doing. If you want keys, I just think it would be like fun to do it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think that was an answer to your specific question, but I think it was a good qualifier to what you said.
Absolutely. What about some examples of, if you could think of any stories that was like, yeah, that actually how I met that person was through showing up to their show or through sharing a post, and then they reached out and I played a show with them or did a project with them.
Yeah, I think honestly that's happened a lot. I'm thinking about Ivy of Poison Ivy and the People because they're also just a wonderful person. But we met because their band was doing a show with Natalie Fiddler, who's like one of my absolute best friends. I think one of the greatest songwriters, like probably of all time. And she's also good at every instrument. But so I don't really miss Natalie's shows when she plays in town, and we're playing together on Thursday. I don't know if that might be before this interview comes out. But in any case, I went to support Natalie, and it was my first time seeing Poison Ivy. And I was like, oh my God, there's so much flair in this. There's so much Broadway, but it's like a guitar rock band. And it was very classic. Like afterward, I like walked up to them and I was like, hey, I really love your music. Like I'm Zaq. And they're like, yeah, I know who you are. Like, which happens to me, from time to time. But that was how we actually got introed. And then we had just a lot of like kinetic social energy after that. But I didn't think of it as like I'm going to go to this show and like meet people. It was just like, oh, cool. Local act. It's like whatever Sunday night. I'd rather do that than not go to a rock show.
Yeah.
But that was the start of a great friendship.
Have you had other opportunities come via getting added to a show or anything like that from making those sort of online connections?
Yeah, tons. I mean, Tommy from Toilet Rats, like we became friends over Instagram during COVID, which is classic, right? It's like that meme template that's like, how do you know each other? It's like we go to the same social media. And the way it started, and this feels like a million years ago now, but we would just both be very open about like mental health struggles. Everyone had a hard time of it during the pandemic. And, for my part personally, it was like I could barely get out of bed for days at a time. And I was pretty open about like struggling, right? It's like people like me that have a very involved, public or semi-public life getting sucked away. And in any case, I didn't even know who Tommy was. Like his account name is Circuits and Kittens because he does guitar stuff and cat stuff. And it's like, yep, that's part of why we're very close friends. But that was just like an internet friendship. And then he did one of my records. He did Solar Baby, which was like my super 80s inspo album. The winter after, COVID was done. And then he was like, do you want to be like the live other Toilet Rat? Do you want to do all the synth stuff and harmonies? And I was like, absolutely. But that just started from like internet kinship, Yeah, you seem a lot like me. Slightly different generation, very similar like friend sensibilities.
Sure.
And I'll say too, he's one of the other people who's constantly sharing other people's music just out of a place of genuineness. Like, hey, this person's been my friend for a long time. They live in like Ohio or like, not Minneapolis. And I just like their music. They live in Britain or whatever. Yeah. This is their random Bandcamp release.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good friendship that was like, there was no agenda. It was just like, hey, you seem similar. You're open about mental health. Now we're friends,
Yeah. The point is you don't really know where some of these opportunities are going to come from. And obviously there's plenty of things that you've shared and supported and shown up to that didn't go anywhere. And there was no, because there's never an agenda outside of being a fan.
Honestly, yeah, truly.
But if you are a fan of certain things and you're fascinated with what somebody else in the scene is doing, show up for it. Like go to those shows and introduce yourself and say hello and connect online, because really good things can come from that. And if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're not making new connections, ask yourself if you are starting those conversations, whether it's in person or online, because you're an outgoing person and do that well, and plenty of people aren't. But there's a really good strategy there of like making friends and improving your career if you just show up. Be genuine. Obviously, like you said at the beginning of the episode, if you aren't being genuine about this, people will tell, and that will go poorly. Don't just do this because it's like, oh, I'd love to play with this band, and and that's your only reason for doing it. Like, that won't work ultimately. It'll fall apart. But even if you show up to support this, you might meet somebody else that's there to support them. That is an opportunity. It's like you just have to get out and do things.
Yeah, super true. And I mean, for me, honestly, the making friends and supporting art is more just like completely for its own merit. And I feel like anyone that knows me would just be like, yeah, you seem to just like to do that a lot. And it's funny that it's like blossomed so many times into like hey, we want piano on this record. You seem pretty easy to work with. You seem to be able to play keys,
It's exactly because people want to work with people they know, like, or trust.
Yeah.
And they won't know, like, or trust you unless you start showing up. And, showing that you're a fan and showing that you're supporting is a great way to start. It's a weird thing to talk about because no matter how you spin it, it can always feel like, Steven's telling us to like go make friends with these people so that it'll improve our career. Because that's the truth of it. Even though it should come out of a place of actually because you like this stuff and actually because you want to be friends and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, it also is really good for your career in time. It will be good because you will have more friends and your network will be bigger.
Yeah.
That's the truth of it.
Yeah.
If you fake it, it won't work. You won't keep it up and people will tell. But if it's real, it will be one of your best strategies for getting more opportunities in your local scene.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true. You got to go out and make friends.
Yeah. I want to pivot over to the book because of all the things that you do. I can find a lot of musicians that are playing in 5 different bands and in touring and all that stuff, but I can find maybe one that's wrote a book, and it's you. So let's get into that because that is really a ton of work, super impressive. I have so many questions about the connection between your songwriting and writing a book and all of this. I haven't read it yet. It is on my reading list.
It's on the bedside table stack,
But so please start by just telling people a little bit about the book.
Yeah, the title is Unspectacular, and it's a novel, and it's primarily 2 points of view. There are a handful of different narrators in it, but one of them is a young woman who is extraordinarily gifted as a vocalist, but is not interested in pursuing like music industry or fame as like a life path.
Okay.
Hence the title of the book. She's like, what I don't really want is like conventional success. I do not want to associate music with money. I'm 20 years old. I don't know why my parents are putting so much pressure on me. And then the second primary narrative, the guy's name is Ajay, and he's a first-generation immigrant from India who is more or less making it in software engineering. He has like a very stuffy, kind of like humorously boring, but also high-pressure job as a manager in the software industry. And he's a drummer like every night. And so he, and the specific part may be drawn from my own life, is constantly like, okay, last night I went to bed way too late because I was loading drums until after bar close. This morning I had to get up way too early to drive, my SUV to an office and like be miserable and it's winter,
Yeah.
And the main thing that binds those two characters together, one, there's a plot device that actually shows us why they get together, like from a thematic standpoint. But the other one is they just both have a lot of like internal psychological pressure that is completely bound up with music.
Okay, cool. So I want to kind of cover sort of the common stuff, but quickly, of like how long it took, what was the reason for doing it, and then we'll get into some more, like just any of that sort of background stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to try to frame it up.
No, those are good open-ended questions. Like, it's fine.
Okay, well, first of all, how long did it take? where did this begin? Why did you do this? This is a big undertaking. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, big undertaking. And I think you and I talked about this like over coffee just before the interview too. But I thought of writing a novel as like you write a novel. That requires a billion different creative processes, but what you're doing is writing a book. So you learn how to write a book, and you learn, this is the same way because I'm a punk, the way I learned how to do music was just by doing it. I didn't go to school or anything. And similarly to the book, the way I learned how to write one was by like just muscling through it, which the way I did it, I wouldn't necessarily recommend to anyone who wants to write a novel. But part of sculpting it was also like I had to like study the craft of writing prose so much because I was not versed in it. Okay. That wasn't something where I'd ever been like practicing writing prose. So when I threw myself shoulder deep into writing prose as like, I treated it like a full-time job, I started reading like obsessively. Like I was reading everything, like every tiny little like literary journal, every library book. I constantly had like a ton of library books on queue, mostly fiction. I think you asked how long it took, and that was 3 years. I don't know if I said that, but like so much of that time was spent just like ingesting obsessively. And it's a little bit like we talked about with music, where like I love being a fan so much. I was reading in order to learn about my craft, but it was also like, oh my God, I love this. Like give me an afternoon where like no one hits me up, so I can be like puddled on my couch and just like take in as much as I can.
Yeah.
And I love learning. Like that's part of the reason I did it, was like, I want to do another thing that's grand that just involves like learning. I literally just want to learn stuff.
Okay. Learning's part of the reason. What's the other part?
Well, I mean, yeah, that was a huge part. I think, there's the prototypical example of like, this was a childhood dream. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, anyone that knows my songwriting wouldn't be shocked to know this, but I was like the total bookworm kid. Like Chronicles of Narnia was like my personality, when I was like 9 or 10. And I think every kid that's like that is like, I want to be an author. Like that, every time I was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said author. And so I think I finally came back around to like, the way I've always done music is like, if I believe hard enough that I can do something, like I can do it. Like I just have to find a way, stay positive and like grind. And so this was that. I was like, I want to do it. I think it's something you can do mostly on your own. So I'm going to like pull myself up and do it.
I mean, it's super impressive. Was there something in the book you're trying to say that you couldn't put in songs?
So from a craft standpoint, one of the main reasons I moved basically into literature instead of doing like songwriting as a 24/7 discipline was just like the size of narrative. Like, and my body of work, it's like, I love narrative songwriting so much. Like many of my songs are like fictionalized versions of real events that come from like an omniscient narrator that's not necessarily me. They're coming from a place that isn't confession, but rather like a made up story. And at a certain point career-wise, I was like, I don't know how much of this I can do that's also squeezed into like a 4-minute, there's a million variations on template within songwriting, but it's like, how do you get like, this is her life story and many different sides of her psychological problems that are not in like a rhyming stanza scheme. Right. So that was one thing. And then when you said, what did you want to squeeze into it? I think many of the other people, or, a majority of the people who have interviewed me about the book, I think correctly interpreted it as a pretty like anti-capitalist, anti-commercial take on what music means to people. Because one of the main things that unites both of the primary protagonists is like, it's really hard to do what I think I love when it's bound up with like conventional ideas about success. And I have written songs that have a bent of that anti-commercialism to them. There's 2 in particular I can think of. But doing that in a song is like a more pernicious like way of doing it, And I was like, I think a book is the way to say how you feel about music. How much can you write a song about music? That's not my favorite device. But writing a book about music made sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. You can get a lot more detail out of a book. Like
a lot of it's just detail. I'm a very thorough person.
Yeah. Well, now that you've published a book and it's been out a bit, what have you learned about maybe the art, or your art specifically, and your audience that you didn't know when you were just putting out music?
I think a huge thing, this was not something I planned or anticipated. And one journalist like kind of mischaracterized it as strategy, which is not a word I ever, like I did the book for like artistic, personal, almost for a long time, private, creative reasons. But something that's been cool, so I've toured the book 3 times this year. I'm doing a 4th tour in November, so cool. I'm going ham on it. And the way that I have toured it is I go to other cities, and just like any band, I perform sets of my own music with the intention of meeting a lot of new people, hopefully new fans, a lot of other bands in other cities. And in addition to the t-shirts that I have, you know, the true merch is like, this was my obsessive art project for 3 years. Like, please think about it. If you like my quirky narrative songs, I think you really might like the sensibilities in this book. And having other people receive the way that my music and my literary efforts dovetail has been really cool. Something I really appreciate, Connor Lee, who's easily one of my absolute closest friends. We play in like 8 bands together. He happens to play in my band. The way he talked about the book release show at Ice House was like, it wasn't that putting on music for a book was like confusing. It was just like, well, this is what we do. You know, it was like, this is how we celebrate. And I was like, yeah, it didn't even occur to me that I would ever release a book without playing a big show for it, because that's what we do. Most years I do like a birthday show because it's just like, well, that's what we do. We play rock shows. But in any case, I think having new fans and bands I don't know be like, that's so cool. I can kind of see how you're bringing a career as like a performing, writing musician into your career as a writer. And I think maybe some people are inspired by that, by having 2 crafts that are different, but like really overlap. I mean, it's a music book, you know?
Have you found that there's fans of only the book, not the music, and only the music and not the book?
I honestly have not hit the internet with the book. That's my next mission, which is to say doing like any advertising or focusing on like book selling platforms. There's a certain one that Jeff Bezos is in charge of where I understand a lot of people find books. I haven't honestly tackled that yet because I've been touring like crazy and doing stuff in town to get the book. Like, it's in a ton of bookstores now, most of them in town. When I hit it online, maybe there will be people who like the book but not the music. But I guess because my persona is like Zaq Baker, the performer, songwriter, pianist, plays with all these bands, that's how I'm known. It's obviously how I'm touring. So it would honestly be kind of a cool next step if someone liked the book but not the music. That would be sick. Because that's what I wanted, was like, I'm an author now.
Yeah, you're reaching people outside of your network at that point, yeah.
I mean, I think there's people that like the music but not necessarily the book. I mean, if someone doesn't like your creative work, they tend to not tell you. I would love to be dragged. I think it'd be fun if someone was like, this sucks.
Well,
like,
that means you're getting big enough to be, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I've always said that. I'm like, if I have haters, I made it, you know? Yeah. I mean, I think that the reading public is large and vibrant and very much alive. If there's someone who likes the music but not the book, it's probably just that they're not a reader, which is completely fine. Like, I've had a few people be like, I'm not going to read it. I'm like, that's fine. Not everybody needs to consume every art form. I don't know anything about movies. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's fine with me.
How is the shifting of mediums? How has that affected, you know, coming back to songwriting after having done the novel? Has it changed things for you?
Yes. I've tried to find ways to sort of not confess this, but because I treated the book as such a work of obsession for so long, it's not like I was spending a lot of my other time sitting around writing songs. I mean, there really is only so much you can do in your waking hours. As it happens, I poured all of my songwriting sensibilities into starting to write a musical in 2022, which is something I'm also very happy to talk about. It's been 95% of the way done since 2023, which is kind of how musicals work. But it's titled Hometown, or it will be titled Hometown. And I have 2 co-writers who are both amazing. One of them's kind of doing the bulk of the script, the book, as they call it, which would be confusing. I've written, I would say, a majority of the music and maybe a majority of the lyrics. But like right out of the gate, I wrote like 20 songs for it. And musical theater is like even more narrative than I already am because it's long form. It's not just story songs. It's like, this has to fit together. And the music is inherently complicated just because I like that sort of thing. It's got even more key changes than I normally do, which was by my design. But I wasn't really writing a ton of like, these are Zaq Baker songs. I wrote a handful that I'm really proud of. The song I wrote for my partner, Bree, that came out on Valentine's Day, that's like one of my favorite songs of mine. You know, that just poured out of me like ASAP. but my focus was literary, and then my focus when I'm at the piano is like musical theater. So I guess I'm just a crazy person. I have to be like very creatively active, but yeah. I don't know that I went from the book like back to songwriting, if that makes sense. Some of it was like contemporary.
Yeah, but there's songwriting post-book.
Absolutely.
And,
100%.
you know, the shift that happens potentially. Which is kind of my next question a little bit, maybe ties into that. But like, you know, now that you have that, granted, you've got a lot more body of work or maybe time in the music world, releasing projects. But now that you do have the book out, do you feel more seen as an author or as a musician?
When I started writing the book, I was like, when this is all finished, I want to be thought of as an author. And I think a good clarification to that is that I treated it creatively, not like this is a songwriter who has another project. I was like, if this book really goes somewhere, I would like it to stand so completely on its own merit that like it would be thought of as like, this is a novel.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't need to be qualified with like, this musician did this like other thing, because it was like in scope, it's completely contained within like itself, if that makes sense. Which is how, like when I read fiction, you know, it's cool if the person did other stuff, but what you want is for the book to be like a holistic art project. But I like being thought of as both. And I think especially like touring as both has been really cool. You know, I didn't expect that to be received one way or the other, but being like, okay, you're like a incredibly comfortable on stage because you've done that so much. Performer, songwriter, pianist, collaborator, vocal harmonies, all of it. And the book is like your real thing. You know, I like now that the two have kind of magically fit together.
Sounds like, you know, both ultimately, right? It's just more of an expansion of your identity versus a shift.
Yeah. There's kind of like a Zaq world that's been built out, you know, for better or for worse. It's a pretty like bittersweet, quirky, wordy place, you know, that it's where I belong.
It makes sense to me. All right. So, I mean, at this point in your career, you've done multiple music releases. You've got a book out. You're working on a musical.
Full-length musical.
Full-length musical. I think one of the next like questions that comes to mind for me and what other listeners might be curious about is like, how do you keep yourself organized? Do you have systems in place? Like, you know, that's a lot of output. Like just the logistics of the amount of groups, the, you know, organization. Like, what's your process look like?
There isn't a stringent organization system that I use.
Okay.
A lot of what I do for my own music, like the sort of marketing stuff, is very shoot from the hip, just because I feel like digital stuff moves really fast. So I'm like, oh, I think this is funny. I should probably just do it while it's top of mind. For creative work, it's like deep dive in. You know, I journal like it's my job. Like the way I used to practice piano, that's how I practice writing. You know, when I was like doing like 24/7 songwriting, people were like, oh, so do you set aside a certain time of day? Do you always do like mornings? And it was like, nope, it's like my default. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's the morning. Sometimes it's when I get a pocket of time. Sometimes it's 11 p.m. Not usually my preference. I kind of try to be good about sleep, but it's almost like doing the creative work is like this default state, you know? And then I go out for a walk and it's like, I can't stop thinking about ideas. Something I'm very, very, very good about is calendar management, mostly because of playing in a bunch of bands. Yeah. I think what's funny is like some people outside the music world are like, oh, there's this kind of stereotypical like daydreamy, loosey-goosey, you know, people come late to things because they're like artists. And it's like everyone I know, most of them are freelancers and music teachers. So it's like if rehearsal's 7 to 9, like we get there in time to try to play by 7 because we have a lot going on. And it's like a respect thing, right? It's like if a venue tells you 5:30 and it's a very soft timeline, like I get it. But in general, it's like just, you know, respect people's time. So I have, let me think, all my Zaq creative work is in purple. Social commitments, this is on my calendar. Social's blue. Other bands are yellow. When I used to have a job that was green, my partner gets like a special basil color. That's her favorite. And then musical theater is like salmon pink. Probably some others. Urgent is red, like doctor's appointment, car stuff, that's red. Reminders are orange. But like without that, that's where I would be like off the rails.
Yeah.
I'm a lot less organized with to-do lists, and I think I could be better about priority management. I have a huge kind of like shiny object, like, oh my God, wait, if I don't do this thing today, like shoot, you know?
Yeah.
Like I got to this interview 5 minutes early and I thought about walking in, and then I was in my car doing like respond to every band group chat, because it was like, if I don't do it now, you know, Monday gets postponed and then July 2nd gets moved around because I didn't confirm, and this other person had heat exhaustion yesterday, so we had to reschedule. And it's like, if I don't do it, all these people have to wait for me.
Sure.
Something I'm super comfortable sharing is that I am in therapy for a lot of different like anxiety management kind of stuff. And we ended up shifting all of it to just the lifestyle management that my therapist gives people with ADHD, not because I have it, but because the way my life has been structured requires like the same help.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think priority management's what I could be better at.
Okay. Yeah. But it sounds like calendar's huge. That's like system number one.
Calendar's almost like, if someone didn't have that, I don't know how they could. If someone in my world that does freelance work or just anything involving groups of people, you know, if you work 9 to 5, I think that's different. You probably don't need to go into the office
Right.
Maybe you do. But for me, it's like, well, this band had a shift to like Tuesday night, and this other one, you know, I have a studio thing at 1 p.m. Like if I wrote that down in random places, I'd probably get fired from a job.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
you got to be fastidious about that. Something I'd like to be better at that I'm still navigating. When you do creative work, you need chunks of uninterrupted time. That's how I wrote a novel. There's no other way to do it. The songs I'm proud of usually came in a relatively short burst when I wasn't being interrupted. And then I was able to edit over time and reharmonize and like get the rhyme schemes the way I wanted over time with focus. Mm-hmm. And it's hard when the phone is right there, not just for like serotonin temptation, but also like, frick, all the band chats, you know, scheduling and like making sure people's time feels respected because they have ideas that they want your opinions on. They have album covers they want you to look at. They have show dates. So I'm like, that thing is right there and my friends are right there. And we're all working together, so I could either keep journaling or I could like help people with stuff that kind of feels like a today problem. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's a solution to that, but that's something I'm really trying to like 2025 like figure out.
Yeah. Setting aside free time.
Yeah.
And respecting your free time, because you need that for finishing projects as well. You know, sometimes if you're using all the little pockets of, like you said, you know, journaling and the creative work is the default. So anytime there's open time, you're working on that. But that can often be great for getting things started or mostly done, but it's not always the best when you need to finish something, when you're in that stretch where it needs to be a highly concentrated, focused effort. It can't just be last minute. I'll fit this in. And so scheduling time for the finishing of things and the polishing of things is important.
I'll say this too, and I'm sure most career artists relate to it. Whenever people are like, oh, Zach, you're so busy. It's like, what's funny, the thing I do a majority of the time that people don't see is all that kind of like the grind of like the emails and stuff, the like unromantic dealing with uncertainty. For example, these tours. Being on tour going east was awesome. It was pretty low stress because I planned the whole thing very assiduously. But in March, April, and May, I mean, my spreadsheet for like finding venues, bands, cities, lodging, like stuff you need to do to survive, like have a place to sleep. That was one of the most stressful experiences of my career, mostly because of the uncertainty. But if it was like, what did you do all day? It'd be like, well, a couple hours was spent going back and forth between DMing bands, because that was the best way to reach them, to calling venues on the phone, to calling venues by finding their phone number through something I remember from ancient history called Facebook, which is something they use that I don't really, but the bartender's like, you can only Facebook message me. The sheer volume of emails. I mean, if anybody wants, we could talk about this too. I share my spreadsheets with everyone. I think I have like every bookstore and venue in New England. Like, and it's a mess, but they're there. Okay. And so that's a lot of the grind is like, well, I woke up super early so I could just like keep trying to get a gig in Indianapolis. And so I could keep getting a fourth band to play with me in Cambridge. And I forgot to get a place to sleep in Ohio. And Haley's helping me because she wants us both to survive.
Right.
You know, but that's also, I think the trouble with making time for creative work is that when I do have free time, I always feel behind on that stuff.
Yep.
I'm trying to do New York in the fall. Nothing is set for that, so I feel behind. I'm going on tour again in November. Nothing is set for that, so I feel behind. But then I also owe it to myself to like chip away at a second book. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. Spreadsheet wise, just working in Excel then?
It's like Google Docs, and
Google Docs.
I would not recommend my organization system to anyone.
But that
the
is
thoroughness is there.
Yes, but that is a system, and it's better than nothing. And it's better than having it in multiple places.
Yeah. But like that one, when I've offered to share it, people, I'm like, let me clean it up first, because I don't want to scare you. But that's actually, this circles back to the beginning of the interview, if you're okay with this
Yeah, go ahead.
topic. I share all that side of thing. I share with anyone and everyone. I didn't expect it to get the attention that it did, but I had a spreadsheet of all the places you can put posters in town. So it's like a ton of head shops, a ton of pizza shops, record stores, sex shops, like coffee houses, restaurants, retail.
Sure.
I've been promoting my own show since 2018. So I'm like, these are all the taco shops. These are all the coffee shops. And I ended up stratifying it by neighborhood. And so there's like an uptown column, Seward column.
See, that's a
northeast.
system. That's smart. Even if it's messy,
yes,
you
that
look
one's
at it,
clean.
Okay, well, you look at it though in general and go, this could be so much more. But the point that I'm making is that you are the type that puts things in spreadsheets and keeps track of things.
Yeah.
Messy, clean, doesn't matter, but you're putting things in spreadsheets, and that's how you work. That's how you keep yourself organized.
A little.
There's a little, at least, enough to put out a book and release a bunch of music. And
so where I was going with that, though, the reason it's in a spreadsheet is because I give it to everyone. Because like one day on Instagram, I was like, hey, if anyone has like poster places I might have forgotten, like DM coffee shops to me. Also, anyone that wants my spreadsheet can have it. And there's like 60 musicians that have sharing permissions on it. Because why would you keep that from people? I'm like, I did all this work. It doesn't harm me if yours is at like Cafeto and Caffrey's. Like, I think that's great. You should put your posters up there too. So the only reason it looks clean is because like there's like literally over 45 other bands that like need it or that use it every time they have a gig.
yeah,
So I think that circles back to what we talked to at the beginning, which is like uplifting other people. What are the advantages? And to me, I've said this to everyone I'm friends with, is like, well, I already did all the work. Why would I not just pass it along? Here's all the places in St. Paul you can put a gig poster. Like, that would be idiotic to just keep it for myself. That doesn't make any sense.
yeah, and hopefully it grows because other people want to add new places that they
They
find.
chimed in. They were like, well, here's all the South places. There's this one neighborhood you don't know, like a coffee shop that's relatively new. And it was like, sick.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I don't drive over there randomly, so it was awesome.
Yeah. Anything else come to mind that in terms of tools that you use or anything that you would recommend?
Everyone that knows me knows my never give up mentality. I think a very common and very understandable gripe among artists is it's not being tired of rejection. It's being tired of like never hearing back. And I'm talking about booking specifically, like events management.
Sure, yeah.
Right? This venue knows me. I don't get why they never email me back. Or I don't get why like they're harping on my ability to sell tickets in a way that feels like they maybe don't respect me or something. And I'm like, one of my mantras is like, well, you can either keep going or not. That's up to you. So it's hard. You can't change the fact that it's hard. I'll grant that it's hard. You can't change that. So then your fork in the road is like, well, you can either keep trying or not, And so I think the way that would come down to advice for me is like, well, just like keep trying, right? I was planning a massive tour and there was a show I didn't have on a Friday night. And I was like, I'll survive if that's a gap I didn't fill. But I would feel ridiculous missing a Friday night on a 2-week tour. You only get 4 weekend nights.
Yeah.
So I reached out to like everybody. And the show I played in Indianapolis was probably the best night of the whole tour. And that was a Friday night that came together like almost literally at the last minute. And it was the most receptive, awesome punk house like I've probably ever played at. Mutual aid house, all anti-war food supply. Like they were amazing. But that's because I kept trying, right? You could just be like, it's so hard booking a tour. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
That would be fair to say by the hours you spend. Like that's fair. But I'm just going to keep trying.
All right. I got a couple just quick questions. Don't need to go deep in them, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Who's an underrated artist that you want people to be listening to?
Underrated in town or just anywhere?
Let's go in town.
So the problem is I can't call anybody underrated. Because if someone called me
All right.
underrated, it'd be like, oh, Zach's not getting...
I'll do this. Who's one local artist that you want more people to be listening to in town?
Yeah. It's kind of stuff I think about all the time. Will you do the other ones first, and I'll
Sure,
get a
I can come
good
back to that.
answer?
Yeah. What's your local venue that most feels like home?
Most feels like home. Great question. It's funny. I've had like the best social nights at 331 Club. That's the perfect, like I played there on Friday, and two of the people I'd never met before, not in like the band's community, just music fans, like we hit it off so well. They're like my friends now. I went to their house
Sure.
yesterday. We hung out for like 5 hours. So honestly, of all the places that's just like so porous, like I go and I'm like, oh my God, there's like a good friend I haven't seen since 2023. My heart is so full. And I met these new people. And then all the bands you play with, you just have fun because it's like it's a pretty low pressure environment.
Yeah.
That's the most like I feel at home. Like I'm for sure going to run into people here that I like.
Yeah.
There's no exclusivity.
Yeah.
That's probably my answer. It's so comfy.
I like it.
Yeah.
What is one thing you'd like more artists to start doing and stop doing?
This might be a hot take or unpleasant, but I guess anyone you should stop doing this is going to come off that way, right? I feel like I see a lot of like, I'm so sick of how you have to be your own manager, agent, marketing person, booking person, executive, while also trying to be an artist.
Mm-hmm.
I completely grant how hard that is. If I had someone doing those things with me or for me, God willing, if I had a budget, I could like cook way more on my creative work. There's absolutely no denying that. At the same time, I feel that falls into the category of like, okay, you can't change that. You got to either keep going or not. I try not to exude a lot of negativity outward. I have my problems, just to be clear. I don't know how much it helps to like have that gripe publicly.
Yeah.
Because you can't change it.
Right.
It's kind of like, yeah, that's tough. And also that's a problem everybody has.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's only so much that whining about any of the number of extremely difficult things that exist.
And they are difficult. I'm completely granting that.
Yes. But there is limited return from that energy. Yeah. What about something you'd like people to start doing?
Yeah, that's a good one. I feel consuming other forms of media is like a really good way to inform yourself as an artist. I'm assuming most of the people that watch this are in music, right? That's the whole idea. I mean, for me, fiction reading is always just going to be like enrichment. You know, even if I hadn't moved into writing literature, I still think that's a really fantastic way to just like get further absorbed into art. I think a lot of people do that. I'm also just such a theater person. Like if anyone's a hater of theater in general, I'm like, hating an entire art form is dumb and bad. Don't do that. Like someone's like, I don't like hip hop. I'm like, that's a wrong opinion. You can literally be wrong about that.
It comes down to learning, be open to learning something new.
Exactly. So I think a start doing would be like, if there's things you're completely walled off to, it's not good for the spirit. And it's also not going to help your creative energies.
Yeah, I like that. I have more, but I think it's time. Let's wrap this thing up. First of all, thank you so much for doing this, sharing your perspective, talking about the book. It's been great. And please keep doing what you're doing. You're always involved in so many cool projects and propping other people up. And I think that's a great example for many other people.
Thank you. That's a really nice thing to say.
At the end of all the episodes, I ask for, to pass on a bit of advice, which you already have quite a bit. So I'd like to kind of switch it a little bit. What's one piece of advice that you have for others that you struggle to follow yourself?
Well, I think you would predict this answer for me. I have trouble now setting aside uninterrupted time for creative work. And that's something that I feel isn't talked about that much. Like 10 years ago, all I was doing was like writing songs. That was like the creative work I was doing. And that's something that would be like maybe talked about more at that time in my life. Mm-hmm. And because you have to put your energy so many different places, that's less of a fixture. So definitely my answer, what I would urge other people to do that I have trouble with is like, just like cook, like make your stuff. Put your phone on DND, put it on the kitchen counter, and then go write in the other room. There's a part of me that does that sometimes. That's how a novel happened, right? It's hard to balance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my guess is that most people probably struggle more with getting themselves to be focused for that long versus setting aside time. Because there's two strategies of like, I'll block off this so that I have cleared the calendar. And then there's a whole other part, which is I'm not going to look at my phone.
Yeah, which I'm the worst at. I love checking my phone. Like someone last night was like, oh, your phone's on Do Not Disturb. That means you're not going to see if I text you. And I was like, I check my phone every 90 seconds. I just have DND so I don't see it light up every time because that ameliorates a bit of the distraction. But like, I'm the worst at that. That'd be another great example would be like, don't get so obligated to other people or you want that little dopamine hit or whatever. Like, I wish, maybe not wish, I intend to be maybe better about that, you know?
Yeah. Well, if people want to follow you, check out your projects, where do you send people?
Instagram's that's the headquarters. It's Zaq Baker, ZAQ Baker. I'm quite proud of the variety of work I've put out under my own name. So Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, whatever, Zaq Baker, same artist name. Obviously, my main pursuit has been getting my debut novel as far out into the world as I possibly can. So a lot of that stuff is corralled at zaqbaker.com. There's like a nice little pitch for the book. If this is Twin Cities viewers and listeners, you know, all the bookstores in town that have it are listed on the website homepage. What else do I do? That's so much. I feel like my website and Instagram are like, we'll just go there. You know, that's like what a link tree is for me, essentially. That's how to find my stuff.
Yeah.
You know, also, I'm very accessible personally. So if anyone's like, hey, I want to like talk to you about whether it's the book or just like, hey, Steven said you're a really nice person to other artists, you know, if you like DM me or email me, I probably will actually respond. You know, I'm pretty like personally reachable.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, Zaq, it's been a pleasure as always. It's nice to catch up with you.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We'll see y'all next time.